Welcome to the Peering Podcast, where the best way to see the future is to peer into it together. It's smart talk with a twinkle in its eye, about peer power, leadership agility, and collective intelligence in a world spinning faster every day. Hosted by Mike Richardson and friends, we peer into what it really takes to stay human, stay curious, and stay future ready. Real conversation, where peers get curious, curiosity gets peery, and leadership gets real. So pull up a chair and let's peer into it together.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Peering Podcast. I am really excited today. We are going to explore the challenges of technology leaders, and we have nobody better to explore that with than Scott Krawitz. I've known Scott for a few years. We'll talk a little bit more in a moment about how we met. And in particular, what I'm really excited about is Scott is a forum leader of a REF peer forum specifically for, very unusually, specifically for technology leaders. And we're going to explore all of that. So welcome, Scott Krawitz.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great to have you, my friend. Now, I'm a bit vague. When and how did you and I first meet, Scott? It's certainly a few years ago.
Yeah, so I leveraged the email time machine, as they call it, and I found I think we were in a trusted advisor group together in 2014, way back when. So I think that's how we met.
Because we've both been hanging around this world of peer groups and peer forums for quite some time and love it so much. That's why we're so dedicated to it. Let's start with this, Scott. How did you get to where you are today? Tell us a little bit about your career. Tell us about what you do today, and we'll go from there. So how did you get here, Scott?
Yeah, perfect. Well, it's been a bit of a winding road, Mike, but what I like to say that I do currently is I work with people and companies that are growing, frustrated, or usually both of those things are happening at the same time, right? And working with them to be the best versions of themselves, right? So, unpacking that a little on the technology side, I act as a fractional chief technology officer, helping companies that don't have one, AI and tech roadmaps. And on the people side, I, discovered this passion for executive coaching about 10 years ago. So I do that, one-on-one via Center for Creative Leadership. And then in the group setting, as you mentioned, with REF and the technology peer group, and just love that. Also, I do have a startup called BHMS. It's electronic medical record for residential addiction treatment centers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we just, my partner has a couple of those homes. We've run it in his homes for a year or so. We just launched and got our first couple customers. So that's scratching my entrepreneurial itch right now.
Just repeat that and tell us a little bit more about what that's all about.
Yeah, sure. So, at heart, I'm an entrepreneur. And so I have a partner who has a couple, addiction treatment centers out in Arizona.
Yep.
And, it's for folks that are kind of going through recovery from an addiction. They're there for 6 to 18 months. And, a lot of these centers, Mike, they're like 10-bed homes. So someone will go and get a license for a residential home, could be in any neighborhood, really, for up to 10 residents.
Yep.
And then, they're helping them with like therapy and diet and just kind of getting back on their feet. And, they're amazing. But the thing is, there's a lot of compliance risk. There's a lot of administrative overhead, right? You're talking 24-hour care. And so a lot of these places, they're not investing in big technology platforms. I mean, they're taking notes, maybe in a notes platform for psychologists, but then they're managing medications literally on a clipboard. And they've got everything's all over the place, which, some of them muddle through it, but then you get a knock on the door from Department of Health or something, and it derails them literally for like a week. So the idea with this platform, it's built by and for these folks. It's just what you need, nothing more. Very easy with the compliance from resident intake through discharge. So my friend who I've known for years approached me, and we've partnered to build this thing and just get it out into the world.
That's really cool, man. So you're really practicing what you preach, and that's just a fantastic, noble cause that you're working on, and being able to bring technology, to that situation is really cool. And then you mentioned another great brand name. Obviously, you mentioned REF, which is a great brand name, but you mentioned another great brand name, the Center for Creative Leadership. So tell us a little bit more about what you do with them.
Yeah, sure. So it was an interesting journey, and I honestly, Mike, I do challenge sometimes. I do have a challenge sometimes figuring out how to tell the story. So, about 10 years ago, I was doing a fractional CTO engagement, and the client said, "Look, we're happy to get a roadmap, but we really want you to coach our director of technology." And honestly, I didn't even really know what coaching was. I knew a few coaches in my network, and I knew management for a company. But so I kind of got some, bits and pieces from them, muddled through it. And at the end, this company had a good technology roadmap, but this guy, just by asking him some open-ended questions, had some great ahas. And I was like, wow, I have to learn to do this. So,
wow.
I took my own time and money and did a whole coaching certification, started coaching at leadership conferences. And about 5 years ago, just a mentor of mine introduced me to Center for Creative Leadership. And, these guys have just been around for 50 years. It's a nonprofit org. They coach a lot of the Fortune 1000s. And sometimes these programs I'm coaching, it's the first time someone's actually acting as a manager.
Yeah.
So it just lights me up to be able to kind of support these folks in their journey. So I act as an executive coach in that setting generally on these emerging leader programs or middle manager programs.
Beautiful.
Where we unpack their 360 and basically help them figure out what's that one thing that's really kind of impeding their growth. Beautiful. To help them get to the next level.
And then take us back further, Scott. I mean, what was your career path before all of this?
Well, I was the kid with the Commodore 64 in 6th grade while other kids were at recess. I was in there, entering code from these, magazines, right? You had to enter in the basic code. But then, when I went to college, I just saw tech was moving so fast that I was like, by the time I get an education in computer science, it's going to be,
out of date.
So, yeah. So I did the broadest thing I could find, which was a Bachelor of Arts in economics. And then, my dad was an attorney. I was always inspired by the law. So I decided to go to law school to maybe focus on intellectual property law. I mean, combining computers and law. And I finished the first year of that and decided that I'd probably rather be building technology than protecting it with the law. No harm or foul to folks to do that. And so, I became a law school dropout. And from that point, I had a really unique opportunity to work in Australia.
Oh, wow.
On a working holiday visa. It was meant for anybody that was within one semester of school. So I went over there and, people on the program, early 20s, getting jobs as lifeguards or waiters. So I went to a staffing agency and I had a Microsoft certification. They found me a 3-month project at basically the Asia Pacific headquarters for a U.S. software company named Rational Software, which was acquired by IBM later. So I worked for them for a couple years. They sponsored my business visa. Got to travel all over the world and decided though that Australia was not the place that I really wanted to start a family. So came back, lived in New York City for about 5 years, worked for a systems integrator. The guy was great and he said yes to every project. So we were like a 20-person company working these big companies and he would say yes. And then I was in charge of working with his team of engineers to just go figure it out. So it felt like kind of like 10 years of experience in 3 or 4. And with that, though, I always had this entrepreneurial urge. And I thought to myself, okay, I know kind of maybe not how to not run a business. I'd like to know how to. So then I went to a school called Thunderbird, which is a school of international management, and did an MBA there. And love that because I was able to leverage the global experience I had from Australia with the business element. So, I mean, just for example, Mike, there were 300 kids from 30 countries.
Wow. Wow.
If you know anything about business school, it's
I do. I've been to business school. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You too. Oh, amazing. So, a lot of it, like at least the school is group work.
Yeah.
So they would literally say, okay, I want to see it. Wow. 5 countries represented every project. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So then after that, went back to New York for a bit, then came to San Diego to start my first startup, which was a loan pricing engine for mortgage brokers. So if you've ever got to get a mortgage and you work with a broker, they've got like 100 lenders that they work with. And each one, has their rate sheets and you need an engineering degree to read these things, right? So I saw the opportunity, I had some friends in the business. And so we built this engine that would take all the rate sheets, pull
Wow.
them in, and then you could qualify and price it. But, that actually did not work out as a business. I worked on it for about 3 years, and then the subprime crisis hit. And I learned the
Right.
value of timing. So, great product. We had a couple great clients, and then just, with subprime, a lot of the mortgage brokers were closing their doors.
Yeah.
So I had to go back to, my roots, which was technology and consulting. So I started, a business where we did IT staffing, we did custom software development, and we did fractional CTO services.
Okay.
Yeah, and I ran that for about 10 years. And then right around 2020, I found that all three of those were probably better run as businesses on their own. And I was just taking on too much at once. And, I had probably some delusions of grandeur.
Yeah.
And I basically ran the business into a wall. It was a great journey. We were Inc. 5000. We were standing up off of all this stuff. And then it just, I was taking money from the profitable divisions to do marketing for the others. And it all worked in my head, but it didn't work out. So I had to close that business. At the same time I was filing for divorce, at the same time COVID hit, at the same time I started a new company. So, with all that and the coaching journey, it taught me a lot about looking at, being very, very intentional about what it is that you want.
Yeah.
And understanding that really, I feel like, inside we're all already enough and we already have enough. And then it's just really a matter of finding, the intersection of your passion and experience that can get you where you're going. So a long answer to your question. That's kind of how I came.
A great answer. And listeners, this is why we are just so excited to have Scott as our forum leader of our technology leader peer group, specifically for technology leaders, because just listen to the breadth and depth of experience that Scott brings to the table, not just with technology, but with human stuff, with people stuff, with leadership stuff, and the experiences that he's been through that he can bring to the table. Not that it's about just the forum leader. Obviously, the forum leader facilitates the power of the peers in the room, but to have someone that is able to come to the table as the forum leader, that's sort of, to some degree, been there and done that, walked in those shoes, gone on that journey, that roller coaster ride that it always is, means it's very powerful. And let me actually skip ahead a little bit, Scott, and ask you a bit more about, so what's your why for being so passionate about facilitating peer forums? What's your purpose? What's your why for doing this kind of work?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Mike. It's a great question. So I feel like my why is connecting with people and connecting people with each other in service of their growth. So, along the journey, I skipped a few things there in the story, but, I actually was a member originally of Renaissance Executive Forum. Was the first forum I was in many years ago with Jim Tenuto.
Yep.
And, it was my first experience in really just being able to have my answers questioned, as he used to put it, was just great. And from there, I just became quite enamored with the peer group experience. If your friends are entrepreneurs, for example, or tech leaders, it's great to be able to speak to them, but sometimes, they're going to tell you what you want to hear, or they might lack context, right? Sometimes it can be hard to talk to your, partner, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and that they want to be there for you, and maybe they'll commiserate with you. Maybe they understand, maybe they don't, or maybe it's something that would affect that relationship and you just don't have a safe place to share. So, the trust, the camaraderie, the collective wisdom that's in the room in these groups is second to none. And I just went all in. So, in addition to Renaissance, I think we've talked before, I've been a member of EO, I've been a member of Vistage, Sage, I was a facilitator for 7 CTOs, all these groups. And really it was as much a thirst for the experience as it was trying to see, how can I contribute to this? How can I, make a forum experience, and specifically for technology leaders, that helps them be the best version of themselves? Because as a tech leader, I mean, still in organizations, a lot of orgs don't have the tech leader as a C-suite role. It's under the CFO, it's under the director of operations. And some of these folks, I've talked to them, and they're the members of the group where like they're amazing, and in their own right, they are an executive,
right?
And they just don't get leveled up like that.
Yeah.
So I think the opportunity to support them like that, given my own journey, and if I can bring any of that back to the technology community, I feel like I'm doing my job.
Oh, beautiful! Wow, it's just amazing. I mean, you've, as I said at the start of this episode, you've been hanging around the peer group, peer forum, peer advisory board experience for many, many, many years. As you said, you've been involved with numerous different organizations. And listeners, you've heard Scott refer to Renaissance Executive Forums, which then rebranded itself to REF, which is who we're both with today. And obviously, listeners know, I think already that you mentioned Vistage, and I was a Vistage chair for 15 years. As you said earlier, that's where we first met. With what you call a trusted advisor group for sort of professional service providers. And so here we are, everybody. We're talking now specifically about this group that Scott facilitates, a peer group experience specifically for technology leaders, getting together for half a day per month in person. It's confidential. There are no competitors in the room. So people can come into that room and be totally transparent, not just about business, but also professionally, personally, and about life. Because as we all know, and you've been articulating through your own story, Scott, and your own activities, business, professional, personal life is just one tangled web of everything. And often it's you've got to be amongst trusted peers to sort of help untangle that. And, what we hear all the time, everybody, is that, I obviously I interact with my management team. Obviously I interact with the board. Obviously I interact with my buddies down the golf club, perhaps, or whatever, or church, or whatever it is. But typically I don't get the time and space from those folks to be able to be fully present with the scale and scope of challenge I'm dealing with, and have unbiased input from peers who care about me and I trust, and to a large degree can relate to what I'm going through. So that's the power of the peers process, everybody. And Scott, obviously you've been touching upon, from your own experience, some of the real world in the trenches challenges that technology leaders face and are facing in particular now as, AI starts to go exponential. And obviously it's these kinds of things that this peer forum will be wrestling with. So what kinds of things are front of mind for you, Scott, in terms of the challenges that these members and potential members are having to wrestle with every single day these days?
Yeah, good question, Mike. So, okay, yeah. Speaking from the perspective as a technology leader, entrepreneur, and also just generally what I've seen in this space, one is getting that seat at the table.
Yeah,
like you mentioned, right? I mean, how do you act as something more than the technology plumber in the organization, right? A lot of times, I work, in my fractional CTO practice with a lot of, CFOs and CEOs, and a lot of it still technology is seen as a necessary evil and not really like a strategic differentiator. It's getting much better with AI, mind you, but still it's a conversation, right? So I think that's the first thing. How do you get that seat at the table? So how do you manage up? How do you influence the folks that you're working with? And how do you convince them that you know what you're talking about and you deserve a seat at that table? Because, technology can be a revenue stream. It can help with customer retention. It can be used on the outside as much as the inside. The other thing is, how do you help leadership understand that employees are technology customers as well? That turnover hurts. I mean, what's the stat? It's 5 times more expensive to hire someone new than when you fired them, right? So how do you do that retention? And so if you have employees that are relying heavily on technology to do their job, you can have the best culture in the world, give them the best resources, amazing team, great product. And if they're sitting there using some system from 1995 where it takes 20 clicks to do everything, they're not going to be happy, right? I mean, they could be looking somewhere else. So I think that's the other challenge is how do you convince management to see that employees are technology customers? The other thing is, how do you level up, right? As far as leveling up your skills on the human side of the house, because to your point, Mike, now with AI, we're putting some pretty powerful tools in the hands of non-technology leaders. And they're being sold a bill of goods that, hey, you don't need developers. You don't necessarily need a technology function. Go take these tools, take ChatGPT or N8N and
have at it.
Have at it. Even at Microsoft, right? So, nothing wrong with that. I love it. It's like, I mean, if you can use that as a leader for personal productivity to get some insights, that's great. But when you start talking about pulling in data, highly, highly confidential data from different sources, and conflating it, there's a lot of issues. I've heard all kinds of horror stories about one was this executive was considering selling the company, and so he was putting together all kinds of things within Copilot, but didn't bound the data. And someone just went on Copilot and said, "Hey, if I were to sell the company," and Copilot responded and said, "Oh, well, based on what I told this other guy yesterday."
Oh, wow.
Right? So yeah, then that news was out, right? So I mean, you got to be so careful. And I will tell you, Mike, also as like a career technologist, I've played with a lot of these, 11 Labs and doing all kinds of proofs of concept because I like to keep my hands in things. It's simple, but it's not easy. I mean, you could very easily get lost in a lot of these things, and then you're bringing in, IT. And so I think there's this sort of, this demo that's being shown that is not the reality. And so to answer your question, that's the other thing. How do you support your non-technical leaders to understand that this is a technology like any other? It might be democratized, but still it needs the security, the compliance, like data, the change management, everything else that you would need to be successful with any other technology tool.
Yeah, loving this. I'm not a technologist myself. I am a scientist who turned engineer. I have written a few lines of code in my time, but not much. But I was always, the executive or CEO that needed, new technology deployments and applications. And I did end up running an enterprise scale software company and a division of high technology solutions. But what you've said was exactly it, that, I would stand in front of big blue chip customers, globally and say, look, this isn't about technology. This is about workflow, and this is about processes, and this is about people, and it's going to be about resistance to change. And it's going to be about how do you lead and manage change and communicate change and, adopt and utilize and leverage all the possibilities that this technology gives you, rather than what most people do is, they skim the surface like we all do with things like Outlook or whatever we use. We skim the surface and not realize how much latent power there is in this thing, at a deeper level. And so I love everything you've articulated. And of course, all of that is going exponential right now with AI, bigger, faster, sooner than we could ever imagine. And so clearly that need for the technologist to have a seat around the table is going to be increasingly more mission critical than ever before. And I think that's why it is so timely, Scott. And we're so blessed to have your commitment to, lead and facilitate this peer forum specifically for technology leaders. A shameless plug for the other podcast that I co-host called Prompt and Circumstance, where we just posted last week's episode with a special guest who you know well, Riley Strickland from Commodore AI. And, he was saying exactly what you're saying. And everybody was so blessed that Scott and I are actually going to be co-hosting what we're calling an AI incubator later in January, where Riley Strickland from Commodore AI and a few others will be, facilitating a sort of demo fest to help our members roll up their sleeves and see real applications to real processes in real businesses, and just inspired, Scott, by the fact that you and your technology members, I think you can be of real service to our bigger community of members. I know you've started to do some joint meetings with some of our other forums, and I know my groups would love to have you and some of your technology members come and sit in and spend, the half day with us to really have that opportunity to talk about, okay, what have I got to do to invite my technology leader to get his or her seat at my table and to fully explore all the dimensions of change leadership and change management that we're going to have to go on with this whole AI journey. So it's going to be crucial. Tell us a bit more, Scott, about how you plan to run this group, how you plan to leverage this group, this forum that you're building, and just why you love this work so much.
Yeah, sure, Mike, and thanks for bringing that up. I mean, one thing I've been working with that I'm going to try to bring to the group and hopefully to Ref and the world at large in 2026 is I've come up with this notion of conscious AI. Right, it's sort of like a two-sided kind of approach to AI. So first, it's when you're implementing AI, it's taking this like humanistic technology leader approach, right? And that to your point, it's a change management, and how do you communicate like a yes and proposition, right? So even as a technologist, when you're helping with the tools, how do you make this something where it's going to help the current team be the best versions of themselves? Our job's going to be lost, sure, but let's make sure that the folks that are left are actually engaged. And, it's not this sort of sickle where we're trying to kind of just cut heads. It's more like, how do we help to elevate the heads that are there? So that's something that I want to impart in the technology leader group and make that part of the conversation. And the other side of it is, becoming the most conscious version of yourself as a leader, as an employee. So as AI becomes more and more talented, the one thing that it's having a real struggle replacing, and I think, the human edge will always be our conscious selves. So one thing we're doing in our forum is we've started doing 10-minute opening meditations. And at first, honestly, it wasn't that well received. But you can imagine technologists are like, what is this, right? But I will tell you, now it is one of the most requested portions of the meeting.
Beautiful.
Where folks realize what it is to kind of drop in, reflect and think about this, not only as a technology tool, but as a human being. So that's what I'm hoping to do with this group, to help them actually maybe even lead that charge. So if there's a CEO or a CFO who's looking at the bottom line and we just want to cut headcount, or we need to kind of, like for the CTO or CIO to step in and go, hey guys, hold on, let's do this consciously and responsibly. Right. And lead by, creating that culture within their team and communicating that outwards.
I love
that. So that's something that I'm looking to do. And as far as, my goal for the group, the thing I love most about it, Mike, like I said, is, this journey, my coaching journey has been great. And I love the one-on-one work, but I love doing it in a group setting as well. And I mean, I can think of no better place than a group of technology leaders, because these are my people, right? So this is the background, and I see that there's the most opportunity for them to help, especially with AI, and also some of the biggest challenges as far as executive presence, communication, change management, things of that nature. So that's what really kind of lights me up. And, Ref is the only place I've seen that offers that. So yeah. That's my hope in growing the group in 2026.
Yeah, that's what we love in our journey with Ref, is that we can be very innovative. We can sense out unmet and unserved needs, and we concluded very quickly, didn't we, that we've got these functional pillars, HR, sales, finance, technology, that by and large are underserved with true peer forum experiences. Underline the word true. I mean, yeah, there are things out there that might call themselves peer this, that, and the other. But the key, everybody, is does it run deep enough to be a true peer forum experience? And that's often hard to intellectualize until you experience it for yourself, everybody. I've been doing this work as a facilitator now for 23 years. And as you've heard, Scott has been involved with peer groups in one way or another for almost the same amount of time, I'm sure. And it's very hard to fully understand what a peer group is and how powerful it is until you experience it for yourself. And over those 23 years that I've been doing this and that you've been doing this, Scott, I've had hundreds of members come to their first experience for the first session, the first meeting. And at the end of the meeting, we turn to them, and whether they're a CEO or they're a more diverse executive or they're a technology executive, turn to them at the end of that first session, as we're wrapping things up, and just ask them, so how was this for you? And typically they give an answer that goes something like this: wow, I didn't even know that this kind of thing existed. I've never experienced anything like this before. I've just met you all, but I feel like we're soulmates. I feel like I've known you for quite some time already because we're all going through the same stuff. And, we processed that person's issue, or perhaps in some cases, this brand new member will have processed an issue or what we call a case. And they'll say something like, the input that I got or they got from all of you was just amazing. And so I think it's so powerful, everybody. And going back to what Scott said, really coming to a peer forum for half a day, once a month is, that's 2% of your time. Or less, because not many people, work a short day. And what we find, everybody, is that 2% of your time helps the other 98% be so much more focused, so much more strategic, so much more courageous, confident, and composed. And I love what you've said, Scott. I'm going to oversimplify this, but given that we're talking about technologists here, we'll just use the sort of hardware-software metaphor, right? There is the hardware element of this peer group experience where you will be talking about very, tangible, tactical, technical things, no doubt. And as Scott has articulated very well, there is the software side of this, everybody, where you will be talking about the underbelly, soft, fleshy stuff, or the human stuff, the leadership stuff, the communication stuff, the paradigm shift stuff, and all of the above. And what Scott has articulated is that his job is to facilitate the members when they come to the meeting getting present to what's in front of them, both on the software side and the hardware side, so that they can navigate forwards more courageously, more confidently, in a more composed way from here. So it's a fabulous experience. Any other thoughts or themes that you wanted to articulate, Scott, around all of this?
No, I think that was very well stated. It was a very relatable analogy, Mike. So I appreciate you couching it that way.
Anything else that our listeners should know?
I think that's about it. Yeah, but I appreciate. I think AI is a massive disruptive opportunity.
Yep.
But there is a lot of noise with the signal, and I'll say that even for the technology leaders.
Yep.
Other groups I speak with and people that I keep in touch with. I mean, even the technology leaders, the best some of us can do is just get demos of these tools, play around with them. But there's a lot of noise with the signal. So my message to folks would be careful.
Yeah.
And if you are an executive or an owner of a business, make sure that your technology leaders are in a group, ideally a group of peers, where they can get some experience shares, where they can talk about this, Mike, to your point, not only on the hardware side, but also the software side.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it strikes me, Scott, and listeners, whether you are a technology leader yourself or you are a CEO, that we're entering a new chapter where this technology seat around the table, of course, it's stating the obvious, is going to grow in significance more than ever before. We need a strong voice coming from that technology seat around the table. As you mentioned, we need those technology leaders to be leveling up because we're entering a very high stakes period of time, a very high stakes era that we can easily get wrong. And yet if we get it right, can be truly game-changing and in terms of being competitive and going onwards and upwards. So technology leaders who are listening to this, no better place to level up yourself than a peer group. Scott and I have been seeing that for decades. And we're really, really, really excited to be running this peer forum specifically for technology leaders. Any final thoughts that you want to leave our listeners with, Scott?
Yeah, Mike, I'm going to piggyback on your comment about, AI growing in significance. So my question and challenge to the technology leaders out there would be, what are you doing to grow its significance?
Beautiful. And that's the work that we do, everybody. We put these big questions on the table in the peer group. They're often fueled by the speakers that we bring in. There are three elements to a great peer group meeting, everybody. We have an educational component where we have a speaker, and we bring in those speakers who can really light a fire, really fuel a thought process and stimulate the members to really be wrestling with what's on their plates. The second element of the meeting is what we call the round table, everybody, and this is where the sharing and the self-assessment and the disclosing and the sharing goals and strategies and those kinds of things and the leadership development happens. So that's the second element, the round table. And then the third element actually is probably the most important, isn't it, Scott? And that is where we get members to bring their most challenging issues, problems, opportunities, not just in business, but also in life, to the table. And we call that a case. And we process that issue, that case together. And if it's a fairly sizable, complex case, we may be at it for an hour. In some cases, maybe an hour and a half processing that case. Scott, that I'm helping launch some other forums, and we had a meeting yesterday morning, and we did a case yesterday morning for a volunteer in the room, someone that was getting oriented to what this is all about. Had never met the other people in the room. This was just an orientation session. We processed a case together for a full hour, and it was fantastic. And everybody got value from it, in particular the member that volunteered to process it. And at the end of that hour, Scott, I asked a question you're familiar with that I've been asking for 23 years now. At the end of every case that I've ever processed, and I've done hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, I turned to the member, this volunteer. I've never met this person before. This is their first, actually, it wasn't their very first experience of a peer group in this particular case. He'd been in another sort of informal peer group, but wanted to do a more formal experience, which is why he was with us. I turned to him and I said, where else do you have that you can go and do what we just did with you in the last hour? And he just quietly sat there, and he gradually shook his head, and he said, I don't have anywhere else that I can go and and be as transparent, be as real, be as authentic as I just was with all of you, most of whom I've never met before, for the last hour. He says, I can't do that with my management team. I mean, not as fully transparently. I can't do that with my board. I can't do that with my spouse, partner, significant other, frankly, not as fully and comprehensively and transparently as I just did with all of you. And so that's what it's about, everybody. It's a very special place. As you know, I've had members in my forums for 15 years, 12 years, 10 years, 8 years. Why? Because they find it so invaluable. They find it so irreplaceable, unlike anything else they can get anywhere else. And so that's what's in store here, everybody. We're blessed to have Scott Krawitz facilitating our peer forum for technology leaders. You've heard the wealth of experience and insight that he's bringing to that table, to that equation. We're really excited about where this can go, not least of all because of this AI era that we are now in. And we're really excited about the place that this technology forum can have in our bigger ref community of CEOs and executives, helping everybody figure out this AI thing. And as I mentioned, Scott and I are going to be co-hosting some events to help our wider community of members, see demos and applications and all kinds of great stuff. So, Scott, thanks so much for being here today. I love this conversation. Really cool. And there you have it, everybody. That was another episode of the Peering Podcast. Thanks for being here, everybody. And we will see you next time. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Mike.
That's it for this episode of the Peering Podcast, where we believe the best way to see the future is to peer into it together. If today sparked something for you, share it with your peers. And keep the conversation going at peeringpodcast.com, because leadership gets clearer and the future gets brighter when we peer together. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep peering in.